Hello, and welcome back to The Haunted Narrative. Today, we will be diving into the true hauntings of the Enfield haunting. Darkness fell upon Enfield, England. August 1977. A normal house on an ordinary street, but inside, something lurked, something sinister. The Hodgson family, unaware, slept soundly. Soon, their lives would change forever. The Hodgson family, terrorized by the unknown. Peggy Hodgson, a single mother, struggled to raise her 4 children. Margaret, the eldest, was a responsible and caring sister, often helping her mother with household chores and looking after her siblings. Then came Janet, the younger daughter, who was full of life and curiosity. She loved reading books and often spent her time lost in the world of stories. And the 2 boys, Johnny and Billy, were inseparable. They played together, did their homework together, and were each other's best friends. They were like any other family, sharing moments of joy and laughter. They had their meals together, celebrated birthdays, and enjoyed each other's company. They laughed, they argued, they lived, but evil was listening. Unbeknownst to them, a sinister presence lurked in the shadows, observing their every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Hodgson family had no idea that their lives were about to change forever. The once peaceful home would soon become a battleground for their sanity and safety. Peggy did her best to provide a sense of normalcy for her children. She tucked them into bed every night, ensuring they felt safe and loved. But strange things began to happen. Eerie noises echoed through the house, and objects moved on their own. The children were the first to notice, their innocent minds unable to comprehend the terror that was unfolding. Peggy tried to dismiss their fears, attributing the occurrences to their imagination. But as the incidents grew more frequent and intense, she could no longer ignore the reality of their situation. Desperation set in, and Peggy reached out for help. She called friends, family, and even the authorities, but no one could provide a logical explanation for the events that plagued their home. Eventually, paranormal investigators were brought in. They set up equipment, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. The Hodgson family watched in fear and anticipation, praying for answers. The investigators reviewed the footage, and what they found was chilling. Unexplainable phenomena were captured on tape, confirming the family's worst fears. They were not alone. Despite the terror that surrounded them, the Hodgson family stood together, united in their fight against the unknown. Their bond grew stronger, and they found solace in each other. As dawn broke, they held on to hope, believing that one day they would reclaim their home from the clutches of the unknown. Their story is a testament to the strength of family and the power of hope in the face of unimaginable fear. Janet Hodgson, the epicenter of the paranormal. It began subtly. The Hodgson family had no idea that their lives were about to be turned upside down by forces beyond their understanding. Noises in the night, objects moving on their own. At first, it was just small things. Knocks on the walls, whispers in the dark. The family tried to ignore it, thinking it was just their imagination. Then, Janet, just 11 years old, became the target. The activity seemed to focus on her, as if she was a magnet for the supernatural. She would feel a cold presence in her room, watching her. She would wake up in terror, her bed shaking violently. The bed would move with such force that it seemed impossible for it to be anything but paranormal. The family was at a loss, not knowing how to protect her. Her small body levitating in mid-air. It was as if an unseen force had taken control of her, lifting her off the bed. The sight was both mesmerizing and horrifying, leaving the family in a state of shock. Invisible hands seemed to be pulling her, tormenting her. She would be dragged across the room, her cries for help echoing through the house. The family could do nothing but watch in horror. Her screams echoed in the night. The terror in her voice was unmistakable, a cry for help that went unanswered. The Hodgson family was living a nightmare, trapped in a house that had become the epicenter of the paranormal. The family huddled together, seeking comfort in each other. They knew they had to find a way to stop the torment, but they were unsure where to turn. The haunting had taken a toll on all of them, leaving them exhausted and scared. Desperate for answers, they called in paranormal investigators. The team arrived with equipment, ready to document the strange occurrences. They set up cameras and sensors, hoping to capture evidence of the haunting. The investigators set up their equipment, placing cameras in every room and sensors in the hallways. They were determined to find out what was causing the disturbances and to help the family find peace. As they reviewed the footage, they found evidence of the paranormal. Objects moving on their own, strange lights, and even the faint sound of whispers. The evidence was undeniable, confirming the family's worst fears. With the evidence in hand, the investigators worked to find a solution. They performed rituals and cleansings, hoping to rid the house of the malevolent presence. Slowly, the activity began to subside, and the family felt a glimmer of hope. The house grew quiet, the disturbances fading away. The Hodgson family could finally breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that the nightmare was over. They had survived the epicenter of the paranormal, stronger and closer than ever before. Bill Wilkins, the voice from beyond. In the quiet, unassuming town, there stood an old, decrepit house. Its windows were shattered, and the paint was peeling off the walls. The locals whispered about the eerie happenings within its walls, but none dared to venture too close. A voice, deep and guttural, started to speak through Janet. She was just an ordinary girl, or so everyone thought, until that fateful night. Her family had gathered in the living room, the air thick with tension and fear. Suddenly, Janet's demeanor changed. Her eyes darkened, and her voice, no longer her own, echoed through the room. It identified itself as Bill Wilkins. The voice was unmistakably that of an old man, filled with a lifetime of sorrow and anger. He spoke of his life, his regrets, and the pain he endured. The family listened in horror, unable to comprehend the transformation that had taken place before their eyes. An old man, it claimed, who had died in the house. Bill Wilkins recounted his final moments, the agony of his death, and the loneliness that followed. His spirit, trapped within the confines of the house, had found a way to communicate through Janet. The room grew colder with each word he spoke, the shadows lengthening as if to envelop the family in darkness. Janet became a vessel, her voice distorted, her words chilling. Her once innocent face now bore an expression of pure malevolence. The transformation was so complete that it was hard to believe she was the same girl. Her family, paralyzed with fear, could do nothing but watch as the entity took control. The entity, through her, hurled insults, made threats, and recounted a gruesome death. Bill Wilkins's voice was filled with rage and despair. He spoke of the injustices he faced, the betrayal and the suffering. His words painted a vivid picture of his tragic end, leaving the family in a state of shock and disbelief. The haunting presence of Bill Wilkins lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of the supernatural forces at play. Section 5. The investigators Gross and Playfair arrive. Word of the Enfield haunting spread. Newspapers ran sensational stories. Skeptics scoffed, but some believed. Among them were Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair, paranormal investigators. They arrived at the house, ready to document the events. What they witnessed would shock even them. Section 6. Evidence or trickery, the skeptics speak out. Voices of doubt arose. Some suggested the children, especially Janet, were playing pranks, faking the voices, staging the events for attention. They pointed to inconsistencies, to moments that seemed rehearsed. The debate raged on, real haunting or elaborate hoax. Section 7. The unexplained events that defy logic. Despite the skepticism, certain events defied explanation. Objects flew across the room with impossible force. Furniture moved as if alive. Photographs captured strange anomalies. Even seasoned investigators like Gross and Playfair were left bewildered. Section 8. The Enfield Legacy, a haunting that endures. The Enfield haunting lasted for over a year. It became one of the most well-documented cases of paranormal activity in history. Books were written, documentaries were filmed. The story captivated the world. Section 9. The After Effects, a family marked by fear. The haunting eventually subsided, but the scars remained. The Hodgson family, forever changed, struggled to move on. Janet, in particular, bore the brunt of the experience. The trauma of those terrifying months haunted her for years to come. Section 10. The Unanswered Questions. The mystery continues. To this day, the Enfield haunting remains a subject of debate. Was it a real haunting or an elaborate hoax? The evidence is inconclusive. The mystery endures, leaving us to ponder the unknown forces that might lurk in the shadows of our world. As we wrap up our exploration of the Enfield haunting, we turn the question over to you, our viewers. What are your thoughts on the Enfield haunting? Do you believe it was genuine, or do you think it was an elaborate hoax? Share your comments below and join the discussion. If you enjoyed today's video and want to dive deeper into the world of the paranormal, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. Your support helps us bring more spine-chilling stories to light. Thank you for watching The Haunted Narrative. Stay spooky, and remember, not everything can be easily explained.